Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Justin and I'm a current first year medical student at the Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. I started medical school shortly after July 4th in 2023, and it's almost crazy to say, but we are already into January of 2024. So even though technically we do not have semesters in medical school, let's take a look back at how these past 6 months have been. So over the holidays, I had a lot of family members ask about how medical school was going, and I would always respond with something along the lines of, it's really hard, but it's going well. And that's just because it was so hard to fit these past 6 months into such a short sentence. But medical school has been so refreshing and fulfilling. Don't get me wrong, medical school has made me feel overwhelmed, and there are days where I just do nothing because I feel like I need a break. But for the most part, I get to wake up every day and work towards becoming a doctor, and that is honestly such a dream come true. So without further ado, let's take a look back at these past couple of months. So let's start with the academics. How hard is the material? Well, if you've ever Googled how hard is med school, you've probably come across the analogy of drinking out of a fire hose, or my personal favorite, eating 10 pancakes every single day. Now, of course, you like pancakes just like you like science and helping people, but do you like pancakes enough to eat 10 of them every single day? Let's say it's a Friday and you just feel like eating 5 pancakes because, I don't know, you don't like pancakes that much and you have other stuff going on. Well, that just means that you have 5 more pancakes that appear on your plate on Saturday. And if you don't get it by now, pancakes are the material that you learn in medical school, and not eating them means you have a lot more to catch up on the very next day. So when did I first experience the pancake phenomenon? Well, our year started off pretty slow with Block 1, which was basically a 6-week crash course on epidemiology, biostats, and the social determinants of health. And I found this time quite tame compared to Blocks 2 and 3. And after Block 1, we had a short 2-week cadaver dissection course called Anatomy Bootcamp, just to give us exposure to the subject. We don't actually do weekly cadaver dissections like some other medical schools do, because we use our HoloLens to learn anatomy instead. But I really enjoyed this time because we had one thing to focus on and we had a lot of free time. But then Block 2 rolled around, and Block 2 covers endocrine, male and female repro, genetics, and basic embryology. And I remember our first ever lecture covered the pituitary gland, and it was this dense 2-hour session, and it was the only session we would have on the pituitary gland for the rest of the block. And as the weeks progressed, you would add on the thyroid, the parathyroid, calcium, vitamin D, the testes, the ovaries, menstruation, pregnancy, and it just kept going on and on. So you basically get one lecture and you move on. But wait, there's more. You have to add on anatomy, radiology, histopathology, and these are all very dense subjects on their own, which you have to balance with the lecture material, and this is when it gets tricky. But it kind of makes sense. If you're learning about the thyroid and its physiology, like how thyroid hormone is produced and how it's regulated, you should probably also know how to palpate a thyroid on physical exam, how to perform an ultrasound, what an abnormal ultrasound looks like, the differences in histopathology between Graves' disease and medullary thyroid carcinoma, and so on. So basically think about every endocrine and reproductive organ that I listed earlier and apply this frame of thinking to that. And all this was done in basically 12 weeks, and I can tell you guys the last 2 weeks of that leading up to our exam was definitely a grind. So not only do you have to learn the material, but you also go through patient cases to apply that material, and it goes something like this. On Monday, you're going to go through 2 patient cases with your IQ group. And in the case, the patient might say, hey doc, why does hyperthyroidism lead to me experiencing excessive sweating, weight loss, etc.? And your job is to, as a group, come together, make a learning objective that says, let's explore the pathophysiology of hyperthyroidism and how it's causing these patients' symptoms. And you learn a lot of the pathophys through lectures, but in IQ you delve into the nitty-gritty of things like certain symptoms, diagnostic techniques, and treatments. And finally, we have sessions like Tuesday seminar and clinical skills practice, where we learn how to take histories, how to perform a physical exam, and most importantly, we gain experience talking to standardized patients, which is a lot harder than you would expect. I remember one session I was talking to a patient about how prenatal testing showed that their pregnancy was at a higher risk for Down syndrome. And the very next session, I was talking to a patient about the importance of weight loss. So there's a wide variety of subjects that you'll cover, but it's a great reminder of why you're actually here, and I love it for that reason. You're not just learning this material to learn it, you're learning it because you'll need to know it when you go on rotations and for when you actually become a doctor. It took a while, but I eventually adjusted to the workload and found the resources that worked best for me. I personally am a pretty big Anki proponent as long as it's used in the right way. It's a review tool and not a learning tool, and I had to learn that lesson the hard way. I prefer boot camp over Boards and Beyond, and I love Ninja Nerd on YouTube. And finally, I am not a lecture goer, at least in person. I really prefer to watch it at 2x speed on my own time, just because of the flexibility it affords me. But I do my best to keep up with the in-house lecture material because at the end of the day, it's what's going to be covered in the exam material, and I can't afford to miss out on that. So all of this might seem like a lot, but there is one thing that makes a huge difference compared to undergrad, and that is pass-fail. The days of stressing out about keeping a 4.0 are no longer, because there is literally no such thing as an A in medical school, and better yet, CASE is true pass-fail unranked, meaning that they're not secretly pitting you against your classmates and separating you into quartiles, and there is no such thing as honors or high pass, at least in the preclinical curriculum. And this is what gives you a lot of breathing room in terms of academics. So let's move on from academics to what I do outside of the classroom. Extracurriculars, or ECs, as we pre-meds used to say, are definitely not as important for medical students, at least early on. Coming into medical school, CASE told us that our #1 priority should be to adjust to the amount of information that we're expected to know and to medical school as a whole. And when you feel comfortable enough with that, you can move on to adding things like volunteering, research, and other activities. Because after all, if we don't pass our classes, we can't become doctors. Time is really limited as a medical student, so I have tried to limit my activities to things that I really enjoy. First, I am part of the wellness and preventive medicine pathway here at CASE. And my favorite part of this has definitely been the bi-weekly teaching kitchen sessions, where we learn to cook meals that are really healthy, affordable, and good options for not only our patients, but us as medical students as well. A really cool part about this is that we learn a lot of vegan and plant-based meals, which is good for me because I'm trying to eat a lot more plant-based here in 2024. I was also elected as the class officer for our student council, and we just recently transitioned to take over those responsibilities. The past CSR, as we call it, did a lot in terms of securing parking for medical students near our campus, and I hope to do a lot of good work here in this next year. And of course, I was part of Doc Opera, which is our medical school variety show that raises money for the student-run health clinic. I honestly did this just because I enjoyed it and it was a great break from studying. Not everything you do in medical school has to be related to medicine, and Doc Opera definitely gave me some of my favorite medical school memories so far. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to speed run the rest of my activities. You've seen me attend monthly mentoring sessions with Horizons. I was part of the first ever exec committee for Spork Wars. Shout out to Ayush for that. It was basically a senior assassins type of deal that we used to raise money for a local charity. I was part of the student admissions committee and interviewed a couple students. And this month I'm going to be volunteering with In Motion, which is an organization that helps Parkinson's patients exercise and better their health through that. And lastly, I am finally getting involved with research. Finding a PI was like my biggest stressor in December because we had to identify a mentor by mid-January for our summer research project. And cold emailing different doctors just was not working for me. Instead, I really recommend reaching out to upperclassmen or different interest groups because they'll probably be able to connect you a lot faster to doctors who are working on different research projects and need help. I'm really lucky though because CASE is affiliated with 4 different hospital systems that do really great research, including the Cleveland Clinic where I will be doing research this summer. So I'm really excited for that. The lab that I'm doing does work on advanced endoscopic techniques for things like obesity and diabetes, and I'm really interested in GI, so I'm excited to join the team. But the onboarding process and paperwork is taking so long, and I don't know when I'll actually be able to get started, but I'll definitely be there this summer conducting some research. So overall, I've tried to treat med school like a 9-to-5 job. Within that 9-to-5, you find an hour or 2 here or there to do your extracurriculars. And depending on the activity, you can even join things based on what's convenient for you. For example, Doc Opera rehearsals were always after 5 p.m. and Horizons happens from 5 to 7 p.m. Monthly on Tuesdays, meaning that you have most of the day to get your work done and nothing really interferes with all the academic responsibilities that you have. Now that probably seems like a lot, and it definitely is, but I will say you find time for yourself and what you love. Whether it's a rather unproductive study session with some classmates or watching a movie with your friends after a long day of studying, you find time to have fun. The road to becoming a doctor is super long, so I make finding balance one of my #1 priorities. I can work in an episode of anime, most recently JJK Season 2, during lunch, and I always find time to call my mom in between my existential crisis of not knowing what specialty I want to do. And of course, I still have time to go to the gym and stay healthy. Now, does it help that I don't want to do some sort of competitive surgical subspecialty? Probably a little bit, but even if I was gunning for something competitive, my thoughts on needing to find balance remain the same. So that brings us to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. My goal for this year is to reach 5,000 subscribers, which sounds like a crazy number, but before I started medical school, I had like less than 100, and now we are here. So I definitely think it's possible. If you guys want to help me get there, please hit that button below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.